If you've been meaning to add your own character meshes to Lyra or how to implement an auto blink, then this tutorial video is for you. I'll be going through how to import a mesh and retarget it so we can reuse all of Manny's animations, and I'll also be going over adding a way to disable the auto eye blink whenever you want to use an animation for the morph shapes that's inside a montage. So in this case, the dash animations. So in this case, the dashing animation, she can make this fierce face and doesn't have to blink. And this is really useful to add some life into your characters. It's not that useful right now in this demo because you can barely see people's faces. But if you're using a game where your camera is not always facing the same way as the character, then it's really useful. I'll be using the Echo skeletal mesh that Epic has provided in the animation sample for Unreal Engine 5.4, but you could be using any skeletal mesh, even metahuman mesh, and the best would be that there are morph shapes to animate the facial animations. A quick word for my Patreon. I've added a new tier where you can have early access to the videos before I post them on YouTube. You'll be able to watch them ad-free as long as you're an early bird. As soon as you join that tier, you'll be able to watch the full length of the video. You can find the link to my Patreon in my video's description. Thank you so much for all my Patreons. Now back to the tutorial. The first thing we'll want to do is grab the Lyra starter game sample. So open up the Epic Games launcher and then navigate to the Unreal tab and then the Samples tab. And then it should be in the banner, Lyra starter game. If it's not there, you can scroll down and then it will be part of the Unreal Engine game samples. Click that one and then go ahead and create a project. And for this tutorial, I will be using 5.4. So choose a path of your liking and then give it a name. This will be useful for following along with this project, but for your own game, whether it's based in Lyra or not, the things you'll have learned from this tutorial will hopefully help you swap out your own character mesh. Okay, and go ahead and click on the create button. I already created a project, so I'm just going to not create. Okay, and then you can go ahead and open that up just to initialize it. It'll show up in your library. And then the second thing we want to pick up is the game animation sample from Epic. It's really nice that they gave us access to so many samples, especially for motion matching, which I honestly have not looked at yet. But what I'm interested in is grabbing Echo in all of her glorious morph shapes. So you can go ahead and click on that and then go ahead and create a project. This one is already, it's already in 5.4 because I think motion matching only showed up in 5.4. And then you can click on create project, name it a certain name and choose a path. And we're going to just use this project just to grab Echo and all her files. So I'm just going to say don't create because I already created one. And then you can find both in your library. My Lyra project, I just called it Auto Blink Lyra. And then the game animation sample is just called game animation sample. So go ahead and open that sample and we're going to grab the assets that we need for this tutorial. Okay, after that's opened, I'm going to go ahead and search for Echo because that is her name. I think she comes from the ancient game sample from way back with the giant robot shooting a laser beam. And that itself is a pretty awesome sample, by the way. There's where Echo is. And I'm going to right click on this retargeter just to show in folder. So I want all of her assets. The Echo skeletal mesh is under the meshes folder. And then I'm just going to go ahead and open up the Echo skeletal mesh. The hair has its own skeletal mesh, which is pretty awesome. I haven't dove in that much into hair, but yeah, she has a whole lot of morph targets. If you can't see that, then you can open up your window, morph target previewer. And it's nice because we can preview what every morph shape does. So I'll search for blink. Okay, I blink left, do one, I blink right, one. So you can, wow, those are really awesome morph shapes. So yeah, there's so many controls for the eyes. The one we'll be mostly interested in is the eye blink left and right. But yeah, once we transfer her into our project, we'll have access to all of this. and our characters will be able to have some personality and have faces. We're going to go ahead and migrate all of the echo assets. So you can go ahead and right click on the folder and then migrate. Okay, and we don't actually care about any of the Unreal Engine, Fortnite assets. This one has all of these assets with it because of the retargeter it already has. So I'm just going to go and hunt that down. Okay, there you go. So she had a retargeter from the UEFN to Echo, and I'm going to click on OK. Okay, and then go ahead and navigate to your Unreal project. So in my case, it is the Auto Blink Lyra. And then select the content folder of your project, and then click on Select Folder. And go ahead and open your Lyra sample project. So I just called mine Auto Blink Lyra. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to go to a map where the shooter mannequin or Manny or Quin spawn in. And this is the map I'm going to use and swap out with Echo. So it's just your basic map. Everyone shoots at each other. Very expressionless because they are bots and they don't have any faces. So we're going to add some emotion to this game. Because Echo doesn't have the same skeleton as Manny or Quin, we will need to first make a retargeter. So if I search for retargeter, you can see that there is an IK retargeter for Echo. Which is just an IK rig. And then you can see that there are some for the UE4 to the UE5 Manny, and there and back again. The only one we'll need to make is one from Manny to Echo, so that we can reuse all of the animations that are created for Manny and Quin. And on top of that, we'll be able to animate all the morph curves, and this way we can share all of the animation data. And if the skeletal mesh has the curves that are animated, then it will animate on the mesh. So this could work for Echo, it could work for any other mesh that has those morph shape names and those curves. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna right click on Echo, show in folder, and then right click on her again. And we're going to create an IK retargeter. Okay, and then in the details, that's right, you can see that I actually set her as a source, but we want the opposite. So I'm just going to choose IK Echo Retargeter, and then for the source, I'm going to use Mannequin. Okay, great. And you can see that what's really nice with this is that it pretty much matched all of the IK chains. Maybe not the left toe, but I will just disregard that for now. And we're going to go ahead and save. Okay, and then to preview, I can just use a specific animation. Oh, there's so many things. Okay, there you go. You can have finger guns. And it's going to be easier to see if they're not exactly at the same position. So what we can also do, so you can go to the details panel and then click on the asset settings. And then for the preview settings, we can move the target mesh to the right so we can see. And it's pretty awesome how it already pretty much did the whole work for us. So there'll be a few things we need to tweak, but this is looking great. You can also auto-align bones on source skeleton to target. So to do the auto-align, you have to click on this here. So you can pause the previewing, and then you can select all these options. I'll leave it alone for now. I guess if it doesn't align, then we might just need to play with that. The next step we want to do is we want to add Echo as a cosmetic, so as the mesh that gets spawned whenever you play. So first thing I'm going to do, so it's not too confusing, is I'm going to rename this Manny to Echo Retargeter or Retarget, and then I can close this up. What's interesting about how the cosmetics are spawned or the mesh are spawned is it's a component that spawns a mesh on top of an invisible mesh. So it's actually called pick random character, and all it does is on begin play, it adds the character part, Manny or Quin, based on a random bool. So this is why sometimes you spawn in as a Quin and sometimes you spawn in as Manny. But in my case, I want this to always be Echo. So I'm just going to go ahead and search where these two are. So I'm going to search for Manny. So there's only 3 different meshes they have. I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate Quin. Okay, so right click, duplicate, and I'll call this Echo. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up. It's just a Lyra tagged actor, which just means that it has a gameplay tag container. So it has some static gameplay tags. And in this case, it has the body style and the feminine tag, which is useful for choosing specific animations based on if they have this tag. And in our case, we want this to be Echo. So I'm going to click on the mesh component and I'm going to choose Echo. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to choose Echo. Okay, it doesn't update right away. And I'm going to go see what this copy pose thing is. So in the case that you use an animation where your skeleton is the same, I'm going to click on animation graph. Yeah, so in the case that your animation or your mesh has exactly the same hierarchy as Manny, you could just copy the pose from the mesh. And then in the case, if you have morph shapes in your new skeletal mesh, you'll want to copy the curves, which would be the animation data for your morph shapes. So you would turn this on here. But in our case, we actually want it to be retargeted. So if I go back to Echo, there's also a tin plate UE4 example that uses an Unreal 4 mannequin. So that is a great example to see how they made it. And they use this animation blueprint. Okay, which is the ABP Unreal Engine 4 mannequin retarget. Okay, and if I zoom in, this one uses a retarget pose from Mesh, which uses an IK retargeter asset. And yeah, it just uses the attached parent and it copies the curves. This is exactly what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and create an animation blueprint from Echo. So let's go back to our heroes or our characters, Echo, meshes, and I'm going to right click on the skeletal mesh, or I'm just going to open it up and then click on create asset, and then it's animation blueprint. So now we have our animation blueprint for Echo, and I'm going to go ahead and just copy this mesh from the Unreal 4 one into our animation graph and just hook it in and save. And I'm going to use the retargeter Manny to Echo retargeter. Compile and save. And that's all we need for her animation blueprint. So now we can go back to our Echo, which is just a Lyra tag actor. And I think the next time I open it, it won't be Quin anymore. Okay, and then I'm going to choose, and I also want to rename it so it's more up to the standards. Okay, so ABP for animation blueprint, and then Echo retargeted, retarget, and then we're going to choose this one. So Echo retarget. There's also the post process, which I have not looked at, but this is sufficient for the facial animations at least. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and close it and reopen it just to make sure that it's her. And there she is. And I'm going to go ahead and add her hair also. So skeletal mesh. And I think I'll just choose her hair. Okay, and she has her hair, and I'm going to choose the hair animation blueprint. All right, so now we have our Echo Cosmetics ready to copy the pose of the parent and at the same time retarget. Yeah, so we don't need to create a bunch of new animation assets. For this pick random character, for good practices, I guess we could just keep this one. Yeah, we're just going to create a new one. So I'm going to go to the reference viewer to see how this is set up. And yeah, it's used in a lot of different experiences. In our case, what is our experience? We are using the shooter game elimination. Okay, so if I browse to the asset, open it up, and then there's the action component list. And the place where we actually set our cosmetics for our mannequin is right here. So to the controller, we add this pick random character. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this and just call it Echo. So pick Echo Mesh, so duplicate, and then Echo, Echo Mesh. And I'm just gonna unhook all of this and just straight up choose Echo. And compile and save. Okay, and then back in our experience, so for eliminations, instead of picking a random character, we're gonna go ahead and choose Echo. And so now when we play, everyone should be Echo. Let's see. Awesome, so everyone is Echo. And you can see there's already some weirdness with the gun. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that up. I'm gonna go ahead and navigate to our characters, Echo, rigs, and then let's go ahead and open up our Manny to Echo retarget. So this bit to fix the hand location, I really have to thank this nice video from Unreal where you play as a big bear. I will link to the description when I remember where that video was. Essentially what it is navigate to your, I think it's hand. Oh yeah, there you go. Your left arm and your right arm. So they take care of the hand IK. So select them both. So you can click and then control click. And then in the details panel, you'll see this IK blend to source. And we're gonna enter 1. So we're gonna fully blend to the source. Just to make sure that the IK goal position is exactly the same. So you'll see that when she runs, her arms are really high up because of the height difference. But it fixes the issue. There's probably another solution. But this is good at least to match up with the hand IK and the weapon position. It's still a bit in her head. So the next thing we want to do, which helped me, is I'm just going to close this, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up the Echo Mesh. So Echo, Skeletal Mesh Echo. Or actually, I do want just the skeleton. So sk_echo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. So Control A. And then I'm going to show the retargeting options. And then right click and recursively set the translation, retargeting, orient, and scale. So I feel like this helped the animations match a little bit better because she has very different proportions than Manny, but there surely are better settings, so don't hesitate to share in the comments. Okay, so now when I play, it looks a little better with the proportions for the retargeting. I'm sure there's a lot of a lot of things we could do to improve this. But yeah, okay, the next thing we're going to focus on is actually adding a blink animation, which is funny because you barely see their faces, but in other kind of or other sorts of game mode, or maybe you have a game where you're not always facing the camera, where you can see the character's face. And we're going to go ahead and create a blink animation, and we're going to create it off of the Manny skeleton mesh, so that it can be shared with any sort of mesh that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the characters. Then I'm going to go to Manny. Okay, and then the mesh component. So skeletal mesh Manny. And I'm going to create an asset off of him. So create animation. And then reference pose. Okay, and then I'm gonna place it under mannequin animations, and I might as well add a new folder, facial anims. Okay, and I'll call this one animation sequence, so AS underscore blink. Okay, and I'm going to append a bunch of frames at the end. So let's say 40 frames. And one thing that's really awesome is that, I mean, if I animated the curves and without seeing it, it would be very hard to animate without seeing echo or any other mesh that has that morph shape. So I could always add the curve, show as curve from other skeleton. So I could add the curves from echo, which is really awesome. And I could animate it, but I wouldn't be able to see. But a great thing that we can do is that we can change the preview mesh. At first, you won't see her. But what you can do is you can click the gear button and then scroll all the way down and click on Allow Incompatible Skeletons. Okay, and then you'll be able to choose echo. You could even choose the rifle if you wanted. I'm not sure what that would do. But yeah, let's click on echo. Okay, so now we are ready to animate her eye blinks. Okay, so I'm going to also add her eye blink right. So blink, eye blink right. Okay, and I'm gonna double click on it to open the curve. And I'm gonna middle click to add a keyframe. So at 0 seconds, we have 0 blinks. And then let's say at 0.4, we have full on blink. Gonna zoom out. I think it's zoom to fit, or F. Okay. So I'm gonna make it way faster. Oops. Okay, and we're gonna hold it a little bit here and then go back to 0. I'm gonna change all of my key points to be auto. But these ones, I still want them to be flat. All right, sweet, there you go. So let's see. Okay, that's a pretty slow blink. That's not bad. I guess what we could do is it happens faster and then it eases out slower. Okay, and then if we want to change the whole duration, what you can do is you can select everything and then you can choose, I think it's, oh yeah, it activates the transform tool. And I'm going to put the pivot point at the left and I'm going to change the length and see what that feels like. Okay, that feels pretty natural. You'd think she wanted to blink faster because it's a shooter. But this is good because it's noticeable and it's good for the tutorial. Okay, and I'm gonna click deactivate the current tool and go back to here. And I'm gonna remove all the frames after this. So remove from frame 14 to 42. Okay, fantastic. And I'm gonna save. Gonna put back my scrubber to the left, go back to our animation, and I'm going to copy this curve. I think I can just copy and paste. Oh, weird. Okay, I'm gonna select all of the points, Control C to copy, and then go over here. Oh, hide this one. I wonder why it's not pasting right. Paste? Ah, okay. I guess I just had to right click on it. Okay. So I'm gonna save. And now, sweet. So we have a blink. So the next step is that we want that blink to happen automatically and have a little bit of time and a little bit of randomness between every eye blink. I'm going to search for AVP mannequin, and it is the mannequin base. And navigate to the animation graph. And right before the output pose is where we're going to add our auto blink. So to be able to also preview in our this animation blueprint, we're going to set the preview scene to also be echo. Okay, and then save. Nice. So now we'll be able to see our changes as it happens. So I'm just scrolling down my mouse and moving my WASD keys so I can see the eyes better. Okay, so I'm going to add a sequence. So I'm going to right click. Oh, and I can close this, just make more space to see. I guess I'm going to right click, sequence. So this one will be a sequence player. Okay. And we're going to play our blink animation. So sequence will be the blink. Okay. And if we plug that directly, just to see. Okay, so she's always blinking. I will plug that out. So Alt click. And then replug that. Okay, so what we want to do is we just want to blend per bone, even though this animation doesn't have bones. So per bone, layered blend per bone. This is the base pose, and this is the blend. And for now, the weights will be 1, but we'll change that at some point just to make sure that we can still animate the eyes in other montages and have the auto blink not happen. Okay, so now we actually want to add that little randomness to the blink. So what we're going to do first is we don't want to automatically loop this animation, so I'm going to click that off. So you'll see it'll just blink once. So yeah, she's not doing SOS anymore. So now what we want to do is we want to add a function to the update event. So I'm going to create a binding for on update of this sequence player. And I'll change the name to update blink timer. Okay, so what we want to do here is that we'll have a timer or a time between blinks. Okay, and I will name it as such. So variable. Okay, so this will be a float. So this will be time until next blink. Okay, so if our time until next blink is greater than 0, then we will keep ticking that time. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this over. So let's subtract the delta time of this context. So I'm just gonna, for for it to be clean, I'm just going to search it and just get the context. And we're going to get the delta time, so how much time happened since this node was updated. Okay, so I'll plug that in, and then I'm going to drag the time until next blink, and then Alt, let go. And so that will create a set node. Okay, so there you go, we're ticking down. And if it's false, we're going to set, I'm going to copy that over. So we're going to set our time until next blink, something random. So in my case, I just use the now time. So what's interesting about Lyra is that for choosing the idle pose, they use the position of the actor, and that's how they get some randomness with it. But in my case, maybe our character's not even moving and they're just idle, and we don't want to have a perfect blink. I'm going to get the ampersand of 3. And then plus. You can use any sort of technique you want to get some randomness. I thought that the random seed was a little too overkill for this, and didn't want it to be super demanding or super unoptimized. Again, if you want to share your tips and tricks about randomness in the animation graph, please go ahead in the comments. But yeah, okay, so in this case, okay, it is time to blink. So, and we reset our blink timer. And what we want to do is we want to reset our sequence to play from the beginning. So the way I found to do that these nodes have helpful comments from the Unreal devs. Okay, so I drag off from the node, and then I convert this to a sequence player, which it is. And we're going to use the pure version of it, and we won't need an execution line either. And then I'll drag that out, and I will set the accumulated time. As the tooltip says, it sets the current accumulated time in the sequence player. Whenever it's time to blink again, we just reset the timer or the time of the sequence. So you can already see it in the preview. It adds some randomness. I could maybe even use milliseconds for more randomness, but this is okay enough for me. So yeah, essentially what I did is I just wanted to get a random number between 1 second and 3 seconds. So that's why I use this seemingly arbitrary math, but it works pretty well. All right, so I'm going to save and compile. Oh yeah, and then I'll just need to return the node. All right. So now when I get back to the animation graph, you can see that on update, it calls this function, and then it just makes sure to blend everything together. Okay, so when I play, I'm going to set God mode, and I'm going to press F8 to eject. Okay, so when I look, oof, moving too fast. Okay, so now you can see that Echo has some eye blinks and she looks less scary. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do in this video is we're going to add a curve to disable the auto blink, so that whenever we have a montage that wants to override the eyes, it won't be auto blinking, let's say, when she's dying or dead. In this tutorial, I'll just basically add a facial animation whenever she's dashing. I'm going to go ahead and search for SK mannequin. Ah, there you go. Okay, so this is our basic mannequin. And if you don't have your curve window open already, navigate to Windows and then Curves. And then we'll go ahead and add a curve. And I'll call this one Disable Auto Blink. I'm going to go ahead and save that. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the dash forward. Okay, perfect. Okay, and again, we're gonna preview our echo. Okay, so you can see it already has a curve for disabling the leg IK. And in our case, we're gonna add a curve to disable her auto blink. And I'm gonna double click that and middle mouse click. And for the entire duration, I'm just gonna set it to 1, just so it disables it. Okay, so this on itself doesn't do anything, so we're gonna have to hook that logic in to the animation blueprint. So I'm gonna search for ABP underscore mannequin base. Okay, there it is. Okay, and I'm gonna navigate back to the anim graph. And then that's when the blend weights come in. Okay, so what we can do is we can get the curve value, and it's called disable eye blink, I think. Okay, so if the disable eye blink is smaller or equal than 0, then it is fully blended. So we won't have any in between. It's probably best to actually use the value itself to like blend in and out that auto blink. But I feel like it makes more sense to just fully disable the eye blink because it could lead to some really funny blending of the eyes. I mean, what is the point to disable eye blinks if you don't have any facial animations? This is when we're gonna add some facial animations to her. She's very, very stoic as she's dashing forward. We're gonna add a curve for... Actually, I'm gonna have a look at her and see what I want to change. Oh, I'm just scrolling back so my camera's not so fast. So I'm gonna search for her mouth funnel. What is that? Okay, I think I'm gonna use the mouth funnel. So I'm just gonna go ahead and reset that. So it's called mouth funnel. I'm gonna add a curve for mouth. Oh, oops. Add curve, mouth funnel. Okay, so right about here, let's say she's very determined right away. So I'll add one at the start. And then this one, there you go. She should pucker at that point. Oh, right click to navigate always gets me confused. Okay, and then maybe at the end she stops puckering. All right. And I'm gonna smooth out these curves. Auto. And then this one down. Oh. They're not capped, so you can definitely go above 1, but it yields really, really funny results. Okay, so... Yeah! She's mad. Okay, and let's make her eyes also look very determined. So... Maybe her eye, let's search what we have available. Ah, she could look very suspicious. Oh, I guess I used a squint. Alright. Very suspicious. Okay, so I'm gonna use the eye squint left and the eye squint right. But we could really use anything. Add curve, squint. So there's even the cheek squint. So eye squint left and eye squint right. Okay, so I'll pretty much copy what this one had. Might as well just select the whole curve and paste. So I'm just gonna pause this. Paste. The interesting bit is that it pastes where your scrubber is, so I'm just gonna undo that. Pause, and then go back to 0 and paste. Okay, that should work better. And then your eye squint right, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Click on the curve, or right click on the curve and paste. Okay, so when I move the scrubber, there you go. She's very determined. Maybe I should have opened her eyes instead of making them squint. But you have the power of doing any facial animation that you want, which is really fun. Okay, so our dash forward is taken care of. We'd pretty much have to do the same facial animations on dash sideways, all the different directional ones, but I'm just going to keep it simple at just forward. Okay, so this disable auto blink should work. And then I'm gonna go slow-mo just so we can see what's going on. Okay, so I'm gonna dash forward, eject. And then, yeah, you can see that she doesn't blink while she's doing her dash, which is good. And then the blink resumes. There you go. So I'll change slow-mo back to 1. Okay, so this is how you implement automatic blinking, and also being able to disable that automatic blinking so you don't get any unwanted results like blinking when you pass out. Yeah, there you have it. Now you have a way to import skeletal meshes, retarget them, and add some facial animations to them. And it should just work with different animations if you have the same curve names. If you do have your own skeletal mesh, and if it's from MetaHuman, it should have the exact same skeleton as Mannequin or Manny. So that one you would only need to have the copy mesh pose or copy mesh curves. If they differ a lot, you might just need to make your own IK rig in Retargeter. But there's a lot of resources out there for doing that, which is awesome. Have fun making facial expressions, animations, and giving life to your players. And as always, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.